Let's move on then to, Summit of the Future. Now, this is something that you've talked about and I've talked about in the past, but many people aren't even aware of it. This perhaps is even more egregious than the World Health Organization and their efforts at undermining state sovereignty.
Yes, it really, really is. And happy holidays to everybody if you're out and about enjoying the fine weather, because behind the scenes, there's plenty going on, and Parliament's out, school's out. Everybody's maybe on holiday watching the Olympics, but what is going on behind the scenes? And even actually in February, on Valentine's Day, February the 14th, I was talking about the Summit for the Future. And I was warning about it, and I want to revisit it now because we'll be looking at two words in particular, your two new buzzwords, which will be peace and security, but that really doesn't mean what it says. So let's remind ourselves that the Great Reset started with Prince Charles back in 2021 when he announced it at the World Economic Forum. So this was, in my opinion, the first phase of the Great Reset. And I've been looking at all of these summits and I thought, well, actually, what does the word summit mean? So this is what the word summit means. It means the highest point, i.e., somewhere like Everest, the topmost level attainable, the highest level of officials, a conference of highest level officials, such as heads of government. So we know that this is a high level meeting. So I went to the Council of Councils, and ironically, the Council of Councils is actually it's been created by the Council on Foreign Relations. What a surprise. But it's a think tank, and it serves to facilitate dialogue between 27 major policy institutes from the world's most influential countries. And it publishes a nice handy guide as to the global summits we should be looking out for. So here's the guide. If you want to go online and look for the guide, you can see, I think that's it, global summits to watch in 2024. So which ones do we need to watch in 2024? We've already had a few, of which we've discussed earlier on in the year, but these are the ones I want to focus on in particular. So in September, we've got the Summit of the Future. In October, we've got BRICS, and that's going to be chaired by Russia in October. And we've got the World Health Summit, which we'll come on to later in the news. And in November, we've got COP29 and G20. So we've got a very busy 8 weeks of high-level meetings and decision makers. So let's start at September 2024, because the Summit for the Future is really important. And they've already called to arms, urgent call to countries to accelerate the delivery of the sustainable goals. Well, I call them unsustainable, quite frankly. But why? Why are they in such a rush? Well, they're blaming conflicts like Ukraine and Israel for a delay. And so now they've only reached 17% of their goals. So they're falling short big time. So I thought I'd go to the World Economic Forum, like you do, to check what they're saying. And they seem to be referring to the Summit of the Future. And thank you to the person on Twitter who said to me, oh, no, you're using Jonathan Van Tam's analogy. No, I promise you I'm not. I'm using the World Economic Forum, who refer to the Summit of the Future as a football match. And they reckon now that they need to go back to the locker room. They need to re-strategize because the game is going to be lost or won in the second half. And they stress the importance of this summit. But what's it all about? Because they call it multilateralism. That's the name that they actually call it. But in my terms, this means global governance. So I've got a little short video just to explain. Have a look at this.
Is the multilateralism we have today capable of managing the global challenges we're experiencing?
Welcome to the UN Library and Archives Geneva. We're here at the Commons, our space for sharing knowledge and debating questions on multilateralism. This is the journey to the Summit of the Future. In the lead up to this unique UN meeting in 2024, we're exploring with experts the questions we should be asking to ensure effective and inclusive multilateralism. For today, and for the future.
In his report, Our Common Agenda, the UN Secretary General called for the Summit of the Future as a critical moment for members of the UN to consider how to build more effective global governance capable of dealing with today's challenges and those to come. The summit is expected to create a new pact for the future and revive global solidarity for current and future generations.
So through this playlist, we're talking with experts and practitioners in the lead up to the summit.
And these conversations explore the ideas raised in the Secretary General's policy briefs, as well as the proposals from the report of the High-Level Advisory Board on Effective Multilateralism.
What kind of multilateralism do we need for our future?
So let's return to the United Nations themselves and look at the next chapter. So they have now published the next chapter where they're predicting that 80% of the world's young people will all live in Africa and Asia by 2100. So that's a pretty big ambition. But what are their key messages? Their key messages are to prioritise young people, to let the young lead the way. That's if they're not bumping into lampposts absorbed by their phones, I should add. They want you to act now for the future, to ditch the pessimism, embrace the courage. It's all about sustainable goals that, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, that are unsustainable. And it's very generation-centric, cover all generations. But what's the pact for the future? Because, you know, the pact for the future is a pact. So I looked very closely at it, and it seems to be a global call to action for peace and security. So peace in my language means your silence and censorship, and security means their security. And we get tracked and traced. But it's looking at the sustainable goals, financing for development. It's looking at tech innovation, digital cooperation, the youth again. And we've got two annexes there: the Global Compact Declaration and the Declaration of Future Generations. I'll come on to that in a minute. But we've also got an engine room for the young. So we've got an engine room youth survey where it would appear that the young are quite happy to be taxed on luxury items for the good of the planet. So, you know, you can't have a plane ticket without extra tax because that goes to the planet. They want to create a platform for young dreamers, and you can be a guardian of tomorrow. And apparently Wales have already got a commissioner for future generations. But they've got three more aims as well. And their three aims are Global Digital Compact, which is basically military applications of artificial intelligence. They want a special envoy for future generations and an emergency platform which really covers all bases and puts all member states into lockstep, depending on whether it's a health emergency, whether it's a cyber emergency, whatever it is. But what's the future beyond 2024? They've got a little roadmap, and here's the little roadmap. So we're looking at Beijing 30, the World Social Summit, that's a news of its own, COP30, and the 2027 SDG Summit, which is going to be the last checkpoint between the 2030 agenda. So that's why they are in a rush. And I've got one little bit more video very quickly to show you, which is about the Summit of the Future.
The Summit of the Future is about how we cooperate at the global level to solve our biggest shared problems. And that includes the problem of not having implemented and not having reached some of the goals that we've already agreed, including the Sustainable Development Goals, the principles of the UN Charter, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the Paris Agreement on Climate Change, and so many other goals and agreements that we've already reached that would really deliver the future we want. But it's also about how we cooperate to address the new opportunities, fast developing digital technology such as AI, and how we minimize the risks of some of those developments. It's about how we solve problems at the global level, how we work together, and how we deliver a future that is fairer, more sustainable, and better for all of humanity, and not just the few who benefit these days from these developments.
So this is a big summit with a big agenda that will mean big changes for us all. And the next few slides, I'm just going to ask you all to go to the website and freeze the screen if necessary, because there's a lot of detail. So I just want to illustrate what they're doing. So this is the Summit of the Future website, to be held 20th to 23rd of September over the equinox, as Stephanie very kindly reminded me. It's been presented as a once-in-a-lifetime, a generation opportunity to mend trust. And there's a lovely picture of a mural there I thought Ben might like to do a little bit more research in. It's the Eduardo Cobra mural, and it's got lots of symbology. So here's the provisional program, and I just ask you to freeze the screen. So here we have Sunday's program, and we can see they're talking about peace and security. And here we go, not acceleration anymore, we're turbocharging. And they use the word turbocharging all the time, turbocharging the 2030 agenda. Here's the Monday provisional program, and you can see the future starts now and common digital future. And then I'll just show you some screenshots of the Pact for the Future, which is a declaration. And please look out for the Pact of the Future, because that's going to have many more details in it. And you can see the actions on the next slide. I've highlighted, I'm not going to read them all out, but please go and have a look, because this is what is heading our way, turbocharging again. And in an area of peace and security, there's a whole chapter designed to that to make us feel safe, but they're looking at new forms of conflict. And here are the declarations themselves. So we've got the Future Generations Declaration first. Secondly, we've got the Draft Digital Compact declaration, which means basically that digitization will transform the world. And of course, finally, just to end up, the UK, we are fully in support of it, multilateralism, and we're really looking forward to the Summit of the Future. And to anybody that wants to read a little bit more about the United Nations, I thoroughly recommend Joan Vion's The United Nations Global Straitjacket.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you very much for that. Now,